Well, good morning everyone. It's Groundhog Day again. Checking my watch. I've been on here for 3.5 minutes. Can't tell you what day it is. I think it's a Friday. The last 3 days have all felt like Sunday to me. I'm not sure how you guys are getting on. And there's no one joining us yet, but it's not a problem. I'm going to just plod on for 15-20 minutes. Going to keep today short. Those of you that are interested know that you can jump online later on. Morning, Simon. So those of you that are interested know that they can jump on later on. This will be shared to the Facebook page. And coffee. Good morning, Gareth. How are you doing this morning? So I've had me 3 minutes of easy warm up. Important at this time, so hope everyone's well. Good morning, Tonya. How are you? So for a lot of us, Groundhog Day. I've had 3 very nice days where my lovely wife has not been working, so it's felt like a weekend. So I've been getting a decent bit of training in, probably slightly too much, so I'm aching a little bit. So today is all about talking to you guys about resting, recovery, and potentially overtraining. So as normal, if you've got any questions, fire them away. I shall do my best to answer them as I am having my little trot on the treadmill. I'm going to try and keep today nice and light because, as I say, I'm a bit sore. I've overdone it a bit for the last few days. So it's difficult because, again, I got different people in different situations. Some people I've been speaking to have been furloughed and have got plenty of time on their hands. Some people have found that their workload has gone up through the roof, and therefore they've got to be careful that they're not overdoing it. And other people are stuck somewhere in the middle where stress levels are going through the roof. So training to me isn't about good stuff. Tonya, shout any questions you've got, please. So training to me isn't about how hard you can go. Morning, Paul. It's all about making your training as smart as it can possibly be. That to me is all about focusing on the needs of each training session, and then actually within the training session, making sure that session is done as well as it can be in terms of to task, and trying to make sure you hit your aims of training zones, whether they're power, whether they're heart rate. And we spoke quite a lot the other day about training to power, heart rate, pace, perceived exertion, and what works best. However, one of the crucial things I would say is that resting is as important, potentially more important than the training itself. So in order to get optimal training, we need to make sure that the body is recovering properly between training sessions. Now again, anecdotally I would say, stuff like looking at your recovery time on your watch may not be brilliantly appropriate. Morning, Paul. And what we've got to do is we've got to take as much information as we can from you, the athlete, as to how you're coping. Morning, Iona. How are you feeling? How are you responding to those training sessions? Because really, to get the best from your body, we've got to make sure that you're recovering as quickly and as optimally as you can. Morning, Aaron, between each training session. Now, I don't think there's a gold standard way to do it. I look at my resting heart rate on a daily basis because my watch records it 24 hours a day. I know some guys have got different systems that look at heart rate variability, either directly or indirectly. Good, Paul. It's all about having a good rest day. Morning, Frank. Hope you're well. The Nigerian contingent are in this morning, which is great. So it's all about looking at this recovery element. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to push the body through training, and we overload you. We put an extra stress on your body, but we're only going to get a development if you recover well from that stress. Because if you keep stressing the body and you don't get sufficient recovery time, morning Jace, what's going to happen is you're going to get overtrained, potentially ill, or potentially injured. So we've really got to be careful that you don't just keep pushing the training and pushing the training and pushing the overload and making sure and avoiding the recovery. Because one of the problems we've got, we're all the same, we're all athletes. What do you do if you're not going well? Oh, I need to train more. Often that's not the case. Often there's not enough recovery coming through. So, as I say, it's difficult to specifically quantify what we should be looking at. But as a rule of thumb, if we're looking at resting heart rates, I think resting heart rate or waking heart rate is a great way of doing it. If you don't have a watch that records continually, you just put your heart rate monitor on for 5 minutes. Use it as a great excuse for a lie-in for 5 minutes in the morning, and look at what your lowest average 30 seconds or lowest average minute is. So wake up, heart rate monitor on, snooze for another 5-10 minutes and look at what your recovery values are. Or, as I say, you can use your phone app, finger on the back of the phone app, look at heart rate variability, and all of these factors will give us a vague understanding of how you're feeling. How much soreness, how much tenderness you've got on a muscle, how up for training you feel, and all of these factors. Now, if you're using resting heart rate as a rule of thumb, once we've determined your baseline value, doesn't need to be done every day, but once, twice a week would be perfect. What we're looking for is if your heart rate is elevated by more than 5 beats, I would be saying to you, my heart rate feels like I'm working quite hard today, I've got tired legs. If your heart rate's elevated by more than 5 beats, you should be modifying your session. You should either be dropping down the total duration of the session, or if it was a more intense session, bringing that exercise intensity down. So if you're planning intervals, make it an endurance session. If you're planning an endurance session, make it a recovery session, or make it a short session. Or if it was just a recovery day, probably worthwhile just having a rest day, or using the time for massage, self-massage, flexibility work, foam roller work. So we're trying to back down if heart rate is elevated by more than 5 beats. If heart rate's 10 beats or above, what I'd be suggesting to you is that you look at taking a complete rest day. Now, what we often find is when an athlete gets ill, and again, different things happen for different people, but more often than not, you'll see in the onset of that illness, an athlete during training will be struggling to elevate their heart rates, and we spoke about heart rate and power the other day and heart rate and pace the other day. An athlete will be struggling to match the heart rates. Just fan on. Oh, fan, where's the fan gone? Oh, shite, I've unplugged it. It's alright, I'll get warm today, it's not good. Apologies for the language. So, if an athlete's overdoing it, what you'll often find in the training sessions running up to that period, you will struggle to elevate the heart rate to where you need to. So that's a classic sign that you're becoming fatigued. Once you're actually ill, you'll often find that the training heart rate flies through the roof. So you'll actually see, for a given pace, for a given power output, your heart rate is much higher as you're training. Now, in that situation, if you then do become ill, what we'll often find is that it will take, the heart rate at rest will be elevated 5-10 beats above where it would normally be, possibly more. But actually, once the heart rate's returned to baseline, the immune function is still suppressed for a further 7 to 10 days following that heart rate recovery. So it's really important that you look at recovery, see how your body's responding, and don't start training back too soon, because that's the problem we have, is many athletes. Morning Kane, morning Jason, morning Dennis, it's good to see you all online. What we find is many athletes are trying to train too much too soon, and then we're going to struggle in order to get you back and get you fit. And then through a season, particularly where someone's racing, an athlete will then yo-yo their fitness, that their fitness is improving, race performances are improving, they think I'll train more to get the race performances more, and as a result they then become too fatigued, they become overtrained, they become ill, start to have to take a week or two's recovery because they're ill, and then suddenly performances are back up through the roof again, think, oh, this is great, I'm going to train harder, don't look after the recovery time, and again, as a result, they crash, they become overtrained, they become ill, and so on and so forth. So the crucial thing to do is to look at physiological responses if you can. And as I say, I would say that taking a rest day is often as important, if not more important, than training. And I've got many of my athletes, and I know this surprises a lot of people, that I will give 2 full rest days per week, and those include guys who are racing at almost an elite level. Now they might do double days, they might train twice in a day, but I'll still give them lots of rest and recovery time. So for me, that time for the body to rebuild, resynthesize is absolutely vital. Now it might be, I can just see a little girl appearing at the door with no pants on, which might mean I have to go in a moment, but we shall see. So that means that we've really got to be careful about what the athlete is doing and making sure they're getting more than sufficient rest and recovery time. Now, allied to looking at normal physiological responses, so I say resting responses, heart rate variability, maybe tracking your weight on a daily basis, so that can be worth doing. If you see wild fluctuations in weight, then we'll find out we've got issues that we've got to deal with. And then from there, right, hold on guys, I have a little person joining me. You right, darling? Yeah. What's wrong? Sorry? Have you done another one? Okay, you run down to the bathroom and I'll be down. It's cold, right? Off you go. Guys, if you don't mind waiting, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Let's go. Go. One. Oh, thank you guys. Well, I'm quite impressed there's a few of you still stayed online, so I appreciate that little disturbance. Anyway, so what it's worth doing is it's worth looking at those physiological responses on a day-on-day basis, morning mark, and just checking to see how your body's responding. So that's not only resting responses, but it's training responses, and then looking at how your body's responding and making sure you're recovering. Because effectively that's the easy bit. And what athletes aren't good at is athletes aren't good at looking at the responses to overtraining. Now, what I think I'll do is the easiest thing to me to do, because I'm going to cheat today, is I shall post a little photo or an image. Yeah, family life, good fun. Sorry, Martin. I was prepped today. I shall post an image of a table that I've got looking at overtraining responses for athletes, and we look at physiological, biomechanical. Yeah, well, here you go. Some people have got staff. So we'll look at physiological, psychological, immunological. What's the other one? It's gone. It's four main categories of overtraining responses. And what I often find with athletes that I work with is that they actually won't see those overtraining responses occur in themselves, and it will be other people that will notice it. Now, we'll go through various phases, and at the moment, as I say, some people will respond in different ways. Some people will be furloughed and they'll go, fantastic, great time to train, and they'll be stepping up their training volume, but in the back of their mind is, you know, what's the stress levels are going to be like, have I got enough money coming in, all those sort of things. So if they're on holiday for 2 or 3 weeks, they'll probably be recovering nicely, but possibly not, because you've got stress levels going on. And then I'm seeing lots of people doing lots of events on the likes of Zwift, which are pushing them deeper than they need to be at this time of the year, bearing in mind we're not likely to see any competitions for at least 6 to 8 weeks, I would suggest. Other end of the spectrum is the guys that are still training but got lots of stress going on in their life for other reasons, and they're trying to balance work, family, commuting, avoiding illness, all of those sort of things. And so again, we've got a situation going on where if you're not sleeping properly, you're not recovering properly, and the normal training week they'd be fine with, but because of the external stressors, they are now in a situation that they're not going to recover properly. So what we look at is we look at sort of the balance of training versus overtraining. So what I'd say to you, and again, got lots of pretty pictures in my book and online, and a couple of blog articles on this. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to overload the body, so we get a suppression in fitness and then we get a recovery, and if we don't train again, that level comes back down again. Now, depending on that recovery level, depends on how prepped and how ready you are to try and train and do your next session. Now, if you've not recovered enough, or you put lots of sessions in back to back to back, they might be low volume, low intensity, but you've put lots of sessions in, we can lead to a situation where the body's not recovering and therefore you're overtraining slightly. Morning, Mum. Now, on a training camp or a short period, that might be normal training overload. So, normal muscular strains, stresses, tenderness that you wake up with, you go, okay, that's fine. I've intended to do this for 3-4 days a week maybe, and you can push through it because it's purposely a training camp, and that you know that the following week you're going to take a recovery week to compensate and allow your body to overcome from it. But if it's not been done on purpose and then you continue to push through, that takes us sort of more into a much more overreached stroke overtrained state. So, you know, you've consciously got the pushing and overloading the body, but then you've got the level where the athlete starts overreaching, starts doing too much, and is either not looking after their recovery or their nutrition or their training intensities, and they're starting to overreach. They're starting to do more than their body can cope with. Now, so go back to basics, look at those physiological responses. Are you doing more than you should be? And in that case, it might be you just need 2, 3, 4 days, easy training, extended recovery periods, and you'll be back to where you should be. But again, if the athlete keeps pushing on from there, then full-blown overtraining symptoms can occur. And we can, as I say, break those down into physiological, performance-related, immunological, and psychological. And performance-related might be things like inability to perform at your workouts, fitness drop-off or performance drop-off, physiological, heart rate responses, both elevated and suppressed, increased nocturnal intake of fluids, so you're waking up thinking, you know, restless legs at night, thinking you need to drink, all of these situations. Psychological, the one that I'm great at, is irritability, so if I'm rested and I'm recovered, I'm fine, but those that come on a training camp know that come day 4, I'm like a bear with a sore head because I'm tired. So it's about looking at these responses and saying, are these normal responses, morning Matt, or are they unusual responses? And if they're unusual responses, it often takes somebody external to pick up and see that what we need to do is we need to modify or change or reduce your training. So we go through phases of saying, well, normal training is great, training overload is great, but if we don't get that optimal recovery, we don't give our body the opportunity to improve that we need to, And then potentially if we take that too far, we end up with overtraining. Now, chronic overtraining can take 6 to 8 weeks of complete rest for an athlete to respond to and to recover from. So again, we've got to be really careful at the moment. I know there's some of you out there that are struggling with motivation, and I can understand that. Partly what this is about is getting you motivated and saying, right, come on, let's do something. Let's keep the focus. And that's what I'm talking to people about from a coaching point of view at the moment, is helping them out, keeping them on the straight and narrow, giving them the focus that they need. Whereas other people are, right, I've got loads of time, training camp. But we're now looking, it's like an eight week training camp where you can't keep going for that amount of time, training both indoors and or outdoors, without having some sort of period where you've got to back off and relax and recover. And so that's where we look at these physiological responses. We look at your heart rates during training, during resting. You potentially look at heart rate variability. You look at fluctuations in weight, and then you look for overtraining symptoms. And if you can get a handle on all of those, that's how we make sure that you recover adequately. So, in a nutshell, look after yourselves, don't overdo it, be sensible about what you're doing, and in that way, your fitness and your performance is going to improve, rather than you're going to make yourself ill and overtrained. And certainly with this nasty little virus that's going around at the moment, the last thing you want to have is a suppressed immune function, because when, rather than if it bites you, when it bites you at some point, and your immune function is absolutely suppressed, you're going to be seriously ill. So you need to be as fit and as healthy and as properly recovered as you can. And that means a good balance of training, a good balance of nutrition, and a really good, healthy, hearty dose of recovery. And I've not even mentioned sleep in recovery today. So again, major impacts in the way that your body responds is looking at sleep. So it's worth recording number of sleep hours and putting that in your training diary as well, so you can work out how well you're responding. So that's me done. I'm done for about 20 odd minutes today. Said I wanted to keep it short and sweet. Apologies to the disturbance midway. I think I kept that down to a fairly good minimum, which was great. But any questions, guys, please fire away. I'll spend another 4 minutes on here before I climb off today. Happy to answer any questions now directly. There's a few people that have logged call requests with me, and I'm going to try and call them back today, around and amongst the children. And again, just a little reminder, a little nudge, that if you find these sessions useful, have a quick log on to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/sports test, and buy me a coffee if you feel that you'd like to support what I'm doing, because it's appreciated. And then, not sure whether I'll be back tomorrow morning. If I do, it'll probably just be 20 minutes light, half an hour light, talking nonsense tomorrow morning rather than anything formally or structured. But again, if people have got questions, please feel free, and I will do my best to answer them. Or if people want a direct conversation with me, let me know. Drop me a message through the website, sportstest.co.uk. Should you adjust your diet for recovery periods? Yeah, definitely, Paul. So, I mean, there's a balance in what we're trying to achieve. So, at the moment, just for what's going on, probably a slightly higher protein intake, lots of variety in your diet, lots of colours. And then again, if you flick back to the nutrition bit that I spoke about a couple of days ago, it's actually really, really important at the moment that we look at post-exercise recovery strategies in terms of diet, feeding immediately after the session. And once I've climbed off here, I'll be going inside for a bucket of porridge and some whey protein. And then I'll eat in about an hour or so's time normally. So it's about eating brilliantly well immediately afterwards. And then on recovery days, I wouldn't be looking to adjust my diet. I'd still be keeping good solid food intake on my recovery day to allow my body to get everything that it needs. So I wouldn't adjust it specifically, it's just good practices that we're looking at all the time. So hopefully that's helped you out on that one. But again, ping me a message. I know I've got to get you some training sorted out for this afternoon because you're on your rest day today, but I shall have your week sorted this afternoon. So guys, thank you all for your time. Still a few of you online listening by the looks, so really appreciate it. Head over to sportstest.co.uk, send me a message if you've got anything, comment on Facebook, send me a personal message on Facebook, or head over to coffee, ko-fi, so that's coffee.com/sportstest, and support me if you'd love to. Nick, yeah, I used to do that as well, and we could probably say that it was the preferred sports drink for pro cyclists for many years, but it gives you a massive sugar rush and a crash, and it's also been shown to leach a whole load of really essential nutrients. So it used to be the way to go in terms of a quick performance fix, but not these days. So good stuff. Thanks all. I've got 10 seconds before I've done my 30 minutes, and actually maybe I should do another 30 seconds for my poo stop that I had to have, not for me, for little one. I say extra information you didn't need, but thanks all guys. I'm going to shut this down now, and if you need anything, please let me know. Cheers all, bye now.